everybody, Luna here, and welcome to Crit Roll Conspiracies, the show where we talk about all the wild and wacky theories that critters have about Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Let's begin with our spoiler warning. This video contains spoilers for Episode 12 of Campaign 3, as well as a few little tidbits from Campaign 2 and Campaign 1. You know the drill. There's connections galore. This week we pick up at the library where Imogen was trying to do some research to find out more about her powers and where they come from. She discovered a book that contained details of a study conducted by Professor Khadija Sumal of the Adelan Seminary in the city of Eos, a center of academic study. It looks like Imogen's mother was a member of this study, but there were pages torn out of the book, so we didn't get to learn any more info than that. Imogen asks the scribe what the hell is up with that, and they inform her that the last people to check out this book were the Loomis twins. Now, if you recall correctly, the Loomis twins were the ones who were attacked by mysterious figures, which Orym came to this city to investigate. So, there are multiple connections here. You know, this study kind of talked about people who had been affected by the celestial cycles and the moon of Ruidus. And it's really funny that, you know, the characters now are so interested in this moon lore when back in Campaign 2, when Bo and Caleb met with a scholar of the Cobalt Soul who was specifically studying the, you know, movements of the moons, they were just so disinterested. And I can imagine that, like, they would be much more interested after this campaign. So of course the big question is, why were the Loomis twins killed? What threat did they pose? And Melinda has a great theory that maybe they stumbled across something that they were not supposed to know about. They have access to an observatory, maybe they saw something they weren't supposed to see, and this kind of ties in with another theory from Philip, who suggests that the celestial cycles of the moon could be moving towards something that would cause maybe like a rift on the material plane and sort of bring forth something scary. And potentially Ira and other factions from wherever he's from the Feywild, I guess, are going to use that for some reason. They're going to try and harness the power or use it to their advantage, and so that is kind of how they are tied into all of this as well. After returning from the library, Imogen sort of shares this information with the rest of the group, and she also shares a little bit more about her family history. We learn that she's never actually met her mother, that her mother left or is gone. She doesn't know anything about her, and her father has always refused to talk about her. But she hears her mother's voice in her dreams. At least she believes that it's her mother's voice. And when Matt has been describing the dreams, he has said, "You hear your mother's voice." So unless he's purposefully tricking Laura, that seems to make a lot of sense. Chetney suggests that they investigate the other books that the Loomis twins might have checked out of the library and, you know, see if there are any kind of connections there. And all right, Chetney, I see you over there with your 15 intelligence. Not bad. Imogen did ask about this when she visited the library at a later time, but unfortunately they denied her access, saying that, you know, that was just an administrative thing that she wasn't allowed to know about. So after the little investigation at the library, we learn a super important fact, which is that Chetney's favorite movie is Seven. Maybe that's not that surprising. It is now 4 days from the ball, so we get a little bit of like a montage of different activities that the party are up to in preparation, you know, and in leading up to this ball. The party goes shopping for fancy outfits at the Golden Veil, which is run by a gnomish woman in a power suit, which I'm very into. Love a good power suit. Chetney absolutely loses it at the price of the outfits. He wanted something in particular with like a hat and a coat that was going to cost 85 gold, and he did not want to pay that, which I find amusing given how much gold he has. He took that pouch of gold from Varley's office, hasn't told any about it, so he is, you know, rolling in a lot of gold right now, and he was like, oh no, I couldn't do 85 gold. Interestingly, Orym knows that Chetney has a lot of gold because he had a successful perception check when, you know, having a look. So the party eventually settle on some outfits with some interesting choices. Laudna. We also get a top tier reference right here from Matthew Mercer, which is just very like close to my heart. So I used to be a cabaret performer. So I died when he said that the gown Fern bought, or like the robe that she bought, was from Katarina Delish, because Catherine Delish is one of the most famous burlesque performers in the world, and she actually makes these beautiful gowns and robes. So the fact that Matt knew that little tidbit and threw it in as a reference just made me so happy. Taliesin specifically looks for an outfit from the Kryn dynasty. So the Kryn dynasty is an area in Wildmount, which we got to explore a lot in Campaign 2, and they wear these kind of like almost insectoid style clothing and armor. And I really love this tweet from Toby that like popped up immediately. Why do you want Kryn Dynasty clothing, Ashton? Unless you have a beacon fragment stuck in your head. That's a favorite theory that we have talked about a couple of times so far, but you know, yet to be determined. After the outfit shopping, they go to a magic shop called the Trove of Marwa, and we meet Marwa herself. Am I saying that right? I've forgotten. Molly. She is a young woman who has taken on the responsibility of the ship ever since her father got sick and died, and it seems like she's shouldered quite a lot of responsibility for someone her age. I really enjoy this character. I really loved how Matt was role-playing her. I really liked her kind of spunkiness. And it seems like the party really enjoyed it as well. They immediately wanted to become friends with her. They were just like, how can we be your friend? And I think, you know, traditionally in the previous 2 campaigns, the shopkeepers of the magic stores became, you know, allies and favorites of the party. We had Gilmore in campaign 1, of course, and then Pumat in campaign 2. So could this be the new one for campaign 3? They buy some potions and cause a little bit of hijinks. Fern steals an egg filled with blood, but then she puts it back. We're getting a little bit of character growth from Fern, not that she would ever admit it. And Laudna actually comes back later to buy this egg, and it's a really cool magic item. It's from the book Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's called the Bloodwell vial, and it's specifically for sorcerers. So you have to put a few drops of your own blood into it to attune to it. You get a bonus to your attacks and your saving throws. In this case, it's a +1 bonus. And anytime you roll hit dice to recover hit points, so whether that's through like a short rest or some other, you know, spell or magic item, you actually gain back 5 sorcery points. So that is incredibly useful. It's only once a day, but still, this is a great magic item. And I think she got it for a steal. I think it was only like 300 gold. So not bad. Orym also buys a magical rope that you can use to scale, I think, 50 feet. And, you know, Orym has kind of been playing almost a rogue-like fighter. He's been doing a lot of like sneaking around on walls and jumping over things. And this will certainly help him fill a little bit more of that role in the party, given that we don't actually have a rogue. Imogen and Orym go back to the Loomis house to ask the twins' mother, Ella Loomis, if they can have a look through her stuff to kind of find out maybe where the pages of the book went, or if there are some other connections that they can find. She consents. They have a little bit of an investigate, but unfortunately they don't really find anything. They let Ella know that they're going to be going to the site of the attack soon, so she gives them a pin that they can give to Astani, who is a family friend who was at the attack when it happened. And the pin is kind of to demonstrate that they are trustworthy and that Astani can talk to them. We also got a couple more tidbits about FCG this episode, and he has some pondering and some thinking to do, because Imogen points out that the polymorph spell, which Ira used on him last week when he turned him into a turtle, probably wouldn't work on an inanimate object. It only works on a living thing, and since it worked on FCG, they therefore must be a living creature. This kind of gives FCG a little bit of pause. They'd never really considered that before. Chetney asks FCG a little bit more about his associates, and FCG says that their party name was the Division of Public Benefit, which I think Sam has chosen because when you abbreviate it, it's the abbreviation for something very Sam-like. Guess that's all I'll say. But it also sounds a bit like a government agency of some kind, or some kind of official organization. I mean, a mercenary group, I just can't really see them being called the Division of Public Benefit. It's a very odd name. Imogen asks FCG if it would be okay to sort of like pry a little bit deeper into his memory of the time when his party members were killed, and he agrees. So she kind of tries to look into his mind as he recounts what happened. He saw a lot of blood. He saw that his friends were fallen. Dancer was taking her final breaths as some kind of creature with one eye attacked her. And Imogen can't really get into his deeper thoughts. There's sort of some kind of blockage there. Matt described it as like almost a scar. And it's at this point that Matt tells Sam, you take 2 points. 2 points of what, Matthew Mercer? 2 points of damage? Maybe psychic damage? Maybe anytime FCG tries to probe into this past memory, they take psychic damage? Or is it 2 points of something else? He could be tracking any number of things that maybe when he reaches a certain threshold, something will happen. I'm curious to know your theories. Put them in the comments below what you think this could be. At some point in these few days, Imogen has another one of those spooky dreams, those spooky nightmares. But there's something different this time. She sees the silhouettes of 2 young adults standing in the storm, holding hands until they get swept up and gusted away, and she runs for her life across the fields as she kind of feels and hears the ground cracking and tearing. She guesses that these are the twins, and the fact that she's now dreaming about them, how is this connected? She said she's never had a dream with anyone in it before until the night that Patron died. Now I can't remember what episode it was in, but I talked a while ago about this idea that potentially Imogen is a Kalashtar, which is a race that kind of has a lot of evocative stuff to do with dreams. And Flowerful left this little comment talking about this idea as well, saying that maybe Imogen is sort of part Kalashtar, maybe her mother is Kalashtar, and therefore she, you know, has some of that within her as well. Kalashtar have these sort of dream spirits that they communicate with, and so potentially Imogen's mother is her dream spirit. But mechanically, I think there are a few things that don't really add up to Imogen being Kalashtar. I wonder if there is some kind of inspiration that's been taken from there, especially now that we're seeing with the Tasha's character creation stuff that you can kind of make your own origin. You can make a custom origin. I want to give a special shout out to my wonderful mod in my Discord and on my Twitch, Moth, who just truly believes that Imogen is not a Kalashtar and is telling us that we're all wrong. We'll find out soon, I'm sure. We finish up the episode with the party meeting Lord Estros to talk about the ball and what their plans are and what the purpose of them going is. Lord Estros explains that the Chandai Quorum is made up of 8 anonymous members, very similar to Waterdeep, which has a sort of similar anonymous council. This council is responsible for making a lot of the decisions in Dressar, and Lord Estros believes that most of them are corrupt, and it's this kind of in-club where they're only benefiting each other and not sort of the regular people of the city. Lord Estros believes that Armand Treshy, who we know is connected to what Ira was doing with Gurge, is a member of the council and wants to expose him. Lord Estros actually wants to expose everybody on the council and sort of expose their corruption to set about some unrest and like maybe an uprising to get a new format of government within the city. He proposes that they use a magic ring that he somehow has. It's not really said how, but it's an exact replica of one of Armand's rings that he always wears, and it has a spell on it which will allow the party to track him. So there's a lot of discussion about how they're going to do this, how they're going to switch out the rings. There's talk of, you know, flirting, doing some sleight of hand. They don't really seem to have a plan other than like be hot and charming, which to be fair is probably going to work out in their favor. But we're going to have to wait until next week to find out. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to the ball this week because I was really excited about it, but I'm looking forward to next week. And speaking of next week, if you want a place to watch Critical Role and chat about it with other critters, I have a watch party in my Discord every week. It's a really nice, fun, chill place. It's kind of like a very small scale version of a Twitch chat, so you can find all the details about that in the description below. And also, speaking of Twitch, I regularly stream on Twitch, normally 2 to 3 times a week, doing all kinds of like D&D crafts and cooking and campaign prep and mini making, and there's a lot of good D&D chaos, so you can also find the links for that in the description below. Now let's have a little look at your thoughts about some of the unanswered questions of episode 11. Even though we learned that Chetney is actually a werewolf, a blood hunter werewolf, there were still a couple of things about his stats that didn't add up, and Matt Mercer actually confirmed what was going on in this tweet, where he says that Chetney is using an offhand mallet, which is actually a reflavored shield, and that he is technically wearing a breastplate, even though that wasn't really described in the character description. It also looks like he has a couple of magic items which are giving him some of those extra abilities, and I think the shadow touched feet, which we talked about, is giving him that ability to go invisible. You guys had some great theories about Ira. I listed out a bunch of the things that we knew about Ira to try and sort of narrow down what the stat block could be, and you guys added some extra ones that I missed, which is that he casts polymorph, and that he also showed resistance to psychic damage. A few people also brought up the tie to Cognosa from Campaign 2 when we had an entity called Ira there. I am still of the opinion that this is a coincidence or a red herring, just because I can't really see what that connection could be, but who knows? A few of you also theorized that Ira is from or is connected to the Unseelie Court, and that Fern's family are potentially a part of the Seelie Court, so that there's kind of this like juxtaposition between her family and Ira's family. Right there, Molly. Fern did bring up this week that her family is practically royalty in the Feywild, so this will kind of make sense if they were part of this sort of like ruling court of Fey beings. Oh, and one last thing before I forget, Laudna did specifically say Delilah Briarwood is in her head, thus confirming that Delilah Briarwood is indeed her patron, or at least she believes her to be so. I know some of you out there don't think that Delilah is actually her patron, that potentially it could be Vecna. Personally, I don't see Matt bringing Vecna back in as another big bad. It just feels like, what's the fun in that? Like, what's the fun in fighting the same big bad that you've already fought? But, you know, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You know I love to hear your theories. I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. Thank you so much, as always. If you'd like to learn more about getting exclusive behind the scene content and also supporting me, you can do so at the links in the description. That's it from me this week and from Molly. See you next time. Bye.